Welcome back to DASAR. My name is Darshan Doshi, and we've had some incredible speakers on my podcast. Today, we have one more such incredible person, Hemant Joshi. Hemant, welcome to DASAR podcast.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks a lot for joining. For those who don't know who Hemant Joshi is, let me give a quick introduction. Hemant is a five-time entrepreneur turned investor. He's spent most of his life working in the enterprise technology space. He's a technologist at heart, but also a company builder, a person who's built global companies right here from Pune. So, Hemant, when someone comes up to you and asks, who is Hemant Joshi? What do you typically say?
Typically, I say I am a software professional. I am a bird watcher, I am a trekker, and I am a nature enthusiast.
My first question to you, Hemant, is you've spent a lot of time on productivity, individual productivity, organizational productivity. You've built Sapience Analytics, which is one of the fastest, largest growing productivity organizations in the world, with over 85 global customers, over 150,000 people who've benefited from this. So when what does productivity mean to you?
Actually, productivity, there are two levels of productivity, one at an individual level and second at an enterprise level. So when you focus on the individual productivity, how focused are you on your work? How much effort you are putting on your work, and what is the output of the effort that you put on the work? So that's about the productivity, about the individual productivity. If you go to the enterprise productivity, then all it bubbles up from the employee productivity, and at a team level, how effective capacity utilization is, how much is your output, what tools and processes are you using. So ultimately, what is the output of whatever you do in a much efficient way. So that's a difference between the individual productivity and organizational productivity. And of course, the organizational productivity bubbles up from the individual productivity, who are the employees of the organization.
Some of the best people that I know are obsessed. They almost have an OCD about productivity, about being efficient, being effective. They're going down to scheduling every single minute of their day, 7 days a week. Now, don't you think there is also a contrary point of view where you need to say, I am unproductive, and there are some benefits of being unproductive?
Yeah, actually, if you try to do too much micromanagement into productivity, I think you get into another issue about anxiety and being able to manage that schedule. So I think probably when you plan your day, you need to make sure that you are comfortable, you have a peace of mind, you are not stressed because of the micromanagement of your own time, and you have to complete certain tasks in certain time. And then if you over plan it, then you try to rush to do that, and then in that process you become stressful, you get anxiety and all sorts of things. So you plan your day, you focus some time on your productive thing that you want to achieve, and some time into your non-productive thing also. That can be your learning, it can be your reading, it can be just a meditation or any other thing, so that it will help improve the productivity when you are really want to become productive.
Excellent. One of the things that I've noticed is even when you started Sapience, at that time, productivity and organizational productivity, enterprises tracking the productivity of its employees was still very, very popular.
Yeah.
And very competitive space. So going back, to your nFactorial software days, where you were working with various startups, how did you look at kind of coming up with another productivity tool, productivity software for large enterprises? What was the thought process?
Yeah, if you look at that time, the productivity mainly was centered around filling up the timesheets and doing some capacity utilization, employee filling the timesheet, and then using that data they were comparing against the output. But the filling of the timesheet is totally subjective. Means every employee typically will fill 9 to 5 and done with it, and they will fill once in a week or once in a month. There was no automated way to collect the good data about how much productive the employees are. And that has to be also coupled with the employee privacy, because if you start collecting the data about the employee efforts and then you start collecting the private their time also, then also it becomes a problem. So we need to define a tool, we need to come up with a tool that will capture the employee productivity in terms of their efforts on the productive things, and also protect the privacy, because it's not that you have to work 8 hours a day. Means you can work 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day, and 1 hour you can browse Facebook, you can browse Google News, whatever you want to do. But that we don't want to capture that, because we have to find a balance between the employee privacy and collecting the productivity data. So there was no such tool available. So that is how this idea about Sapience came into picture.
For those who don't know enough about Sapience, maybe you could give a quick overview of when it was started, then to the stage that it's got today, the funding that it has received, and the exit as well.
Yeah. So idea of Sapience really came up by Swati Devdhar, who was a part of nFactorial incubator, and she came up with this idea, and then as a part of nFactorial we started developing that idea. And then when it started to take off, and we also got a little bit bored with nFactorial, because it was mentoring, and as we discussed earlier, there wasn't a commitment, and we were not enjoying that. So we decided to jump into Sapience, and initial funding we took from Indian Angel Network. That was before Series A. Series A we raised about 18 months later from Seed Enterprises. So it's an Indore-based fund, and later after 2 years we raised another fund from Orios Ventures. So that was ABC series of funding, and then we were doing comfortable in India. We had about 70 plus logos. We have some logos from the US side also. So we are growing very nicely in India. But we wanted to expand into US, and this is where we needed money and we needed expertise from US. So Credit Suisse has a fund called Next Fund. They call it NEXT Fund. So this is the asset management fund, and actually our product was used in Credit Suisse in India, and the center head of Credit Suisse in India, they liked the product, and they referred our product to the Credit Suisse in the US, to the Next Venture. And when Next Venture talked to us, they really liked that, and they like that. Okay, this is an Indian company, not much traction in US so far, so that they can take this company and make it a global company. So that is how the last investment came in from Credit Suisse, and as a part of the investment, they flipped the company to the US. So our headquarters moved to US, and mainly the operation shifted to US. And now the company is headquartered in Dallas, doing very well. During the pandemic also, it seems that they have got a lot of traction. And after Sapience, when they moved to US, we came out to start Pentathlon Ventures.
Excellent. COVID-19 has really helped or accelerate technology adoption. Remote work has become now a norm. Within 1 year, most organizations are comfortable with their people working from home or in any hometown, small village as well, and that's a great thing. But on the other side, I hear a lot of tracking being done of employees, the devices, their productivity. So some thoughts on what you are seeing today, because you talked about privacy as well, how do you manage employees and their productivity in a remote work scenario?
Yeah, actually whatever the tools or processes any company is using has to make sure that they protect the privacy of the employees, because ultimately employees are not really, so you are using company laptop to do sometimes your personal thing, your bank thing also. So you don't have to track each and everything what is happening on the computer. I think the software or process has to differentiate what is work and what is non-work, and make sure that what is non-work is not captured. And what is work is captured, because for the organization that is of interest. Organization is not interested in how much time you are spending on Facebook. If you work for 8 hours, you can spend rest of the day completely on Facebook. They don't care. But at least you should protect the privacy and make sure that whatever they are doing in the rest of the time is not captured. So that is one concern I think employee has, and I think that has to be addressed. Otherwise, they will not be comfortable with the products, like who are tracking employee productivity and employee what they are doing on their computers.
You started off as a services entrepreneur first with In Reality Software, and then you went on to found few other companies as well. Today SaaS is very, very popular. What is your thought of transitioning from a tech services entrepreneur to a product focused entrepreneur? What are the differences? What are the challenges? What kind of changes are needed in the mindset?
Yeah, I think you talked about the mindset is the fundamental change when you do product versus services. We started with services company. The services company, of course, there are risks with services companies, but there are less risk in terms of, because you have a project and then with the project you hire people, and if you deliver you get the returns. You will not get the good gross margin, but you get the returns, and you can scale the organization as the new projects come in. And there are very successful companies like Infosys and Persistent who have scaled services company to a huge size. But when you look at a product company, I think you don't get any revenue for a longer time. So you need to have a good capital, first of all. Then you need to focus on the problem that you are solving and how you are solving that problem. The product that you design has to be scalable architecture. When you design a product, it has to plug into other ecosystem within that company. So you need to have a lot of APIs that can integrate. So because SaaS is also, if you look at it, is a good business, you get a recurring business, but also there is another challenge that people don't like you, they can shut off SaaS very quickly compared to the on-premises product. So you need to make sure that your product is scalable, your product can integrate within the organization, so it becomes sticky, and that is a challenge. You need a lot of capital in the product company compared to the services company. And in the services company, you have a typical mindset, and people try to do both services and the product together. And let's say I will get some revenue from services and put that money into product, but that is very difficult, because what happens is when you get a services project, you have a tendency to assign an engineer from the product team into that, because I'm getting some money in the product, I'm going to not getting immediate money. So that discipline doesn't happen, and then it doesn't work actually. So, but there are some successful companies who have done that, but it's very, very difficult to find that balance.
What are the steps to that someone can look at who's building a SaaS company today to hit $0 to $1 million ARR and then $1 million to $10 million ARR? What are some of the things that you've observed?
So if you are building a SaaS company, I think one of the important thing is the product should be easy to use, very easy to use, because when you have a SaaS company, you have potential to get global clients. And you cannot have a support organization supporting global clients all the time, onboarding them. So the first important aspect of building a SaaS company is the product should be very easy to use. It has to be self-service model where people can come into the platform, they can sign in, they can swipe their card, and then they can ready to go. Just like what Zoho is doing, just like what Freshdesk is doing. So these are the great examples on how to build a SaaS company from India. The second important part I would say is the architecture of the product. Very important, because architecture becomes, if you want to scale, you need to have a scalable architecture in place. Otherwise, it's not going to work, because once you have users going to 100,000 or a million users, if your architecture is not catered to that, then you're going to face a problem with that architecture. And the third thing is, I think there are simple things like, for example, I'll tell you in Sapience case, we have a concept of online time and offline time. Offline time is really the time, offline productive time is the time that you are spending in the meeting. So we were all displaying offline time, online time. In the US, that nomenclature is different. Offline means I am not working. So when you do a SaaS product, you need to make sure that if I am getting US users, so they should correlate the term with what they are used to. Offline to US is not working. Offline in India is I am working in the meetings. So that I have to worry about. I think people have to think, because this is what matters when you go from India to US, because the way the terminology is different than what we use in India or versus what we use in anywhere else. So we are just to be careful about that.
Incredible insights. You've built so many companies and now you're an investor. You started Pentathlon Ventures with few of your partners, and you're investing in early stage technology based B2B startups.
Yeah.
What has been the transition for you? How has it been? What are the changes that you observe from being an operator to an investor? And any insights that you have based on whatever investments you may have made till date?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of learning. We started Pentathlon about 1.5 years back. It's a lot of learning in terms of how to evaluate companies, how to evaluate founders, how to put valuation to the company, what are the terms that typically people are comfortable with, typically VCs are comfortable with. So a lot of learnings in that. And I think being on the other side of the table, earlier being entrepreneur, we can correlate with some of the challenges that the entrepreneur face. So for example, they want to hire some people at a very senior level so that they can build a scalable architecture. They want certain terms to be friendlier to them, so we can appreciate that. So those are the learnings actually, and those are some of the understanding that we are building as we are building Pentathlon. Another thing actually is how to evaluate a company. Means so some company comes, and what do you look in the company? You look at the founders, you look at the space, you look at the GTM strategy, you look at the revenue. So you'll have to factor multiple factors into account to evaluate a company. So that is also being a lot of learning, and how to evaluate a company, how to shortlist, how to select, and how to make investments.
So it's an entrepreneurial venture in itself as well, being a first-time entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
Putting together a fund.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. My one question to you is, you've spent a good part of the last 20-30 years being a product developer, being a product entrepreneur, and now investor. Knowing what you know today, and if you had to start some venture today, what $100 million plus opportunity would you go after?
I think on the technology side, I would say there are 2-3 things that I can see as a huge opportunity. One is the application of AI. Of course, there are a lot of companies in AI that are coming up, and you see in natural language processing, you see in vision, and you see everywhere. But I think there are a lot of exploration needs to be done. AI also needs to get more accurate in terms of what they do, the algorithms and things like that. So AI application is one big opportunity, I would say. The second big opportunity is in India itself, is in fintech. With the Aadhaar stack and with the payment stack in India, I think there are a huge innovation happening in India in terms of insurance, in terms of APIs, in terms of consolidation and micro lending, all those things. I think there's a huge opportunity in that space.
You mentioned there are a lot of opportunities within AI, but I want to broaden that a little bit. If you look at deep tech, which includes AI, image recognition, IoT, blockchain, and many other technologies out there, when you look at those technologies and productivity, right? Individual productivity and organizational productivity. Any new opportunities that you see today which need to be done?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what happens is that if you have a lot of data that you are collecting from your organization, it can be via agent, or it can be via your servers, it can be via your email servers or your SaaS tools. So there's a lot of data that is coming up, and if the organization can harvest that data and use AI with that data, they can come up with a very good productivity enhancements. For example, can I find a pattern of a data from a team which is doing very well? So if I start observing that pattern, and if I start applying that pattern to other teams and finding out why certain teams are not doing well and why certain teams are doing well, that can be a very good tool. Secondly, if I have a data for the employee, I think employee, if is disengaged, I think the employee behaves in certain way. For example, their time on private goes up, their time on meeting goes up, so their productive time goes down, their output goes down. So if you start getting such patterns from the organization about the individuals, I think you can identify that why certain group or certain people are getting disengaged, and can you find some programs or some employee engagement initiatives for those people or for those teams who can then engage back with you.
Can you share your experience of what was In Reality Software and nFactorial?
Yeah, In Reality Software started by me and Madhukar in 2003. What happened is that me and Madhukar, we are going for a conference in US, and we were part of Veritas Software. We are doing very well, in fact, at a senior position, but we wanted to try something. And what happens typically now that enterprise, a lot of people want to start business. They want to do certain things, but they are not ready to take the risk. But if you don't take a risk and if you don't try, how are you going to make sure that you are successful or not? So at least we wanted to take a risk, and we wanted to see whether how his entrepreneurship is, and then we jumped onto that and we started In Reality Software. So In Reality Software business model was to build products for Silicon Valley companies in India and set up an incubation team for them. Once we incubate the product, once we build the companies, once we build the product teams, they can do a transfer to their own subsidiary. So that was the idea, and we built a lot of products for Silicon Valley companies. And at that time, we were very successful. We grew significantly, and we are one of the fastest growing company in Pune. And Ramesh Wadhwani's Symphony Services, they identified us and they wanted to expand into Pune. So they made an acquisition offer, and we got acquired by Symphony Services. And we then grew Symphony Services to about 800 people team in Pune, right behind your center. And then after we came out of Symphony, we wanted to do something for the product ecosystem in Pune, because we saw that there are a lot of entrepreneurs but a lot of services companies. There were not many product companies. So how can we help product companies and give our expertise so that they can build product out of India? That is how we started. And we worked with six to eight product companies within that incubation period. But what we realized that we enjoy doing hands-on work and not really mentoring companies. And that is where Sapience was getting incubated inside nFactorial. We all decided to join Sapience, and we built Sapience as I told earlier.
Fantastic. Now let's talk about who is Hemant Joshi. You're a trekker. You also are a lot into running and cycling. You're an entrepreneur and an investor. DASAR, we focus a lot about taking that first step towards your goal, and that includes 5 topics: startups, investments, development, wealth, and fitness. And we at DASAR at the core believe that if you are fit, that really impacts how you do business, how you live your life, how you interact with your society, your community, your family. So when did you start your fitness journey? How long, or what are the routines that you follow, and how has being fit helped you be an entrepreneur or an investor?
You can freshen up your mind. You can have a little bit of clean slate, and you can start thinking about some of the challenges that you are facing as an entrepreneur. And a lot of times you find some solutions to the problem while you are doing exercise or while you are doing trekking and things like that.
You've achieved so much success, professionally, personally. You've gone on to found so many businesses. I'm assuming, you've got enough money in the bank for you to be able to do the things that you want to do. So why do you still continue to build Pentathlon, or look at getting up every morning and doing the things that you do with so much passion?
Actually, money is not only the satisfaction. I think wealth is important, money is important, but that is not the only factor that gives me the enjoyment. I think I am passionate about two things, and that keeps me motivating. One thing is I want to see whether we can help entrepreneurs to become successful and they build multi-million dollar businesses from India. And second thing is my motivation is environment. I think that keeps me motivated quite a bit. And now with the Pentathlon workload, keeping that in mind, I will be spending a lot of time in nature restoration, forest restoration, and doing some activities with environment. Actually, I recently completed one diploma from Ecology Society of Pune in ecology, and that during the pandemic time, and that really helped me bring different perspective to look at the nature and look at the ecology, look at the biodiversity. And I think these two things will keep me motivated. One is building a $1 billion company from India, and how can I be helping that entrepreneur? And second thing, how can I pay back to the society or the nature, and how can I do some restoration activities?
Amazing, to take the effort to make this a priority, get that diploma and align it. This is the classic example of truly being curious and learning and leveling up. My next question to you, Hemant, is around money and wealth. I know you mentioned that money is not everything, but at the same time, money is important. So what does money mean to you? Any numbers, any figures that come to your mind where you say, if I have this much money, or this is what I actually thought about in the earlier decades, and this is my perspective now?
Actually, it's very subjective, but I think when I started in reality, I think during the first year, I think without any money we managed. I think so you can really survive in the minimal budget if you keep your expectations low, if you keep your lifestyle low. So I think money is not everything. So if you need to have enough money to have a lifestyle, but I wouldn't say you can spend depending on your choices, depending on your comfort level. But I think money is one part is a financial money, but the second money is very important is what are your circle of friends and families and relations? How many families are you able to support? Are you able to do employment generation? So the wealth is a accumulation of money, and the non-money part that becomes the wealth for me.
Thank you for bringing this up. At DASAR, I launched DASAR Foundation in January. And through DASAR Foundation, what we are doing is we are supporting 5 families from less privileged, local native towns in India. And we want to provide them with 25,000 rupees of household income per month so they can sustain.
Very great.
And the way we do that is I take consulting engagements with various organizations, such as the first one to support us is Wadhwani Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And what we're doing is we are supporting startups to help them improve their businesses. And the consulting income goes towards supporting these low income families. Right? So would love to get your support on this as well.
Yeah, that will be great. I think one of the things that I recently came across, got introduced from Ecology Society, one of the members is Praveen Bhagwat. I don't know whether you know, he was the CTO of Air, I forgot his name of the company, but he was a CTO, and he started this reforestation effort at Vitai near Pune, and about 150 acres he's doing reforestation on the barren land. So I'm actively now helping him as a volunteer, as a contributor, as a member, to see how can we make some difference to the environment, and that has generated about 70 income to the 70 families. So 70 families are surviving on that particular project.
So not only do you make Pune more beautiful and more green, but also provide income to people who need it.
Correct.
Thank you, Hemant. I hope you found this podcast insightful. We've got today Hemant, who's a 5-time entrepreneur turned investor. Lot of experience talking from building products, building services companies, supporting global clients right here from Pune, and then now investing in the next generation of startups and founders. If you like DASAR podcast, I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, if you like reading, we have a lot of writings on our website. Go to www.dasar.in and I'll see you soon. Thank you.